opened the mine in 1968, I was quite appalled by the conditions for the migrant labourers. The working hours were long, it was a 60-hour week. The conditions under which they worked, they were out in the open, very little protection against the cold and the wind. They weren't given much to eat. They were given half a loaf of brown bread and a flask of cold tea to last them throughout that 10-hour shift. Conditions in the hostels were not much better. There were no decent dining facilities. They had to eat in their rooms out of aluminium buckets. There was no real privacy. The hostels themselves were not very nice places to be in, single-sex hostels, 20 people to a room in some instances.
Many black miners still live in segregated compounds away from their families. In a country in which it is illegal to pick a diamond up off the ground and keep it, the miners' union claims workers can be dismissed merely on suspicion of stealing diamonds. But today, De Beers says everybody gets a proper hearing.
Any employee who could actually buy a new car is being investigated, and people were dismissed summarily because they were suspected of dealing with diamonds. How can they buy a new car? So people were dismissed without a hearing, not a proper hearing, without an inquiry whatsoever. People were dismissed, and the reasons given, which was there on paper, was security reason. And that cannot be followed up in terms of an appeal and so on. And our people were very afraid to take De Beers at a higher level, because in our country, De Beers is an empire.
Ironically, the revulsion of the world to the brutality of the apartheid government contributed to the growth of the Oppenheimers' power inside South Africa.
When in 1960 we had the Sharpeville massacre, a number of international companies in South Africa decided to get out of the country, and many investors also withdrew. Overseas investors withdrew their investments from the stock exchange. Companies like Anglo American and other large corporations then bought up the shares in the stock exchange in order to prevent the exchange from collapsing, and which would have generated a financial crisis. Instead of possibly allowing a financial crisis, which would have then forced the government into more difficulties and perhaps brought about an earlier end to apartheid, they actively supported the economy and therefore gave the government a base from which it could protect itself.
Companies in the Oppenheimer empire include breweries, paper mills, chemicals, farms, and businesses of every description. Today, the empire's interests represent up to 40% of the total value of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange.
And now I'm going to press the button and let us see what happens.
But as his empire grew, Harry Oppenheimer tried to separate his reputation from that of a pariah government in South Africa. This 1979 De Beers film showed Oppenheimer the reformer.
In a decision taken by the De Beers company to move away, so far as it was possible to do so, and as quickly as possible, from the system of migrant labor. We are moving away from that system, and we are making a great effort, and I think a very successful effort, to replace it by a system by which the workers in the mines will be permanently resident and will not be going backwards and forwards between the mines and our homes in quite different parts of the country.
In spite of Oppenheimer's reforms, his early support of black labor unions and other liberal causes, he says he's been hesitant to use his business clout to influence the government's policies. He explained why in an interview with South African television.
I think one's got to put this in two ways. I mean, there's my own position as an individual. I've never believed that the government's policies are right, particularly in the racial field. But I've also would think it quite wrong, in my capacity as chairman of the Anglo-American Corporation, to use that position in order to try to press the government into views which I believe in, that they don't believe in.
In a few months, Nelson Mandela will lead the black majority to power in South Africa. But as the election nears, the ANC is sending strong signals that it needs the support of the white business community. So what will the new South Africa mean for the Diamond Empire?
Until there is legislation preventing the existence of these cartels, or until there's a major crack in the market, the cartel will survive. I do know that the ANC is thinking about antitrust legislation in South Africa for the future. But whether they would include a company like De Beers in that or not is an open question, simply because De Beers is too powerful. If they were to include De Beers in that and De Beers were to stop producing diamonds, it would be very serious for our economy.
Another challenge to the cartel's power is the political unrest in the former Soviet Union. Boris Yeltsin is unhappy with the terms of a 5-year De Beers contract signed by Mikhail Gorbachev. In 1992, the Russian parliament investigated an allegation that De Beers had undervalued Russian diamonds.
I think it's difficult to estimate how much they lost actually with De Beers. It could have very, very well been possible that if they would have sold the goods to somebody else, that they would have made also only the same price. There just wasn't anybody else who could get it. That's the difference. And that's where we go back to the monopoly.
Evgeny Bichkov oversees the country's diamond stockpiles.
It's in Russia's interests to get a good price and sell the goods in order to cover the expenses of mining and make a profit. And we're going to negotiate with De Beers about reducing this quota. Let us hope that a mutually beneficial solution will be found. Let us not approach these issues from the point of view of what if they say no.
Russia has more leverage than other producers. Its diamond production is greater than South Africa's. Its deposits in the ground are immense, and its stockpiles may exceed even those of De Beers. Russia's instability and desperate need for hard currency are potentially devastating to De Beers. These millions of carats of diamonds, if suddenly dumped onto the market, could destroy the cartel. 2 years ago, the Oppenheimers opened an office in Moscow. They seemed to spare no effort to cement friendships and influence people in government circles, trying to keep the Russians inside the cartel.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm extremely grateful to Julian Ogilvy Thompson.
Despite all the forces that threaten the Diamond Empire, the cartel seems to approach these latest challenges with a serene confidence.
I think you carry on with where you find yourself in life. I chose my father with discretion, and I found myself in a certain position, and I mean, like the prayer book says, I have sought to do my duty in the station which it pleased the Lord to call me.
After a century of maneuvers to control the supply and price of diamonds, the cartel's greatest accomplishment may be that it has transformed the illusion that diamonds are valuable into a hard reality. And the future of the Diamond Empire may now rest with the complicity of millions of consumers, all invested in the myth that diamonds will be valuable forever.
Give her what her heart wants most, a diamond.
People feel that a diamond is only desirable because it's a symbol of great sacrifice. A man will make a great sacrifice to a woman and take a portion of his wealth and buy a diamond.
I know. You shouldn't have waited 10 years for this.
If a diamond cost relatively nothing, say $5 or $10, what a breakfast cost, it would have the same aesthetic value, but not the same value in the imagination that it has. So people like spending a lot of money on diamonds.
That I waited 25 years to give you this.
The 25th anniversary diamond, a brilliant celebration of the loving marriage.
I've got goosebumps.
So, like all deception, the person who's deceived plays a part in the deception as well as the deceiver. It's not a one-person act. It's two people, the deceiver and the deceived, act in collaboration.
More profound than words. Diamonds.